Okay, here we go. We are joined this evening by a bunch of noisy teenagers. So if you hear screaming and shouting, it's not going on in this room, it's going on in the room behind us. We just have to put up with that. So welcome back, everyone. And we are going to talk about the next bracha. In the well, nearly said the Shemonah Esrei then, in the Amida. Now, we spoke last week about prosperity, did we not? And Frank said last week, Frank's not here, said he's not coming tonight, but can't remember why, but anyway, he said that
Are you recording?
I am recording, yes. Frank said that and I don't remember actually, maybe somebody can remind me. I remember him saying that this bracha that we're going to do today is a nice follow-on from the last one, which was prosperity and the blessing of the years. But I can't actually remember how he tied it together now without going back and listening to it, and I didn't go back and listen to it. So can't remember. But anyway, we'll have to go back and listen to it or ask him. But in the meantime, we will move on to the next bracha, which is the 10th bracha of the 19. And what's it called? What do you have it in your Siddur? Does it have a title in your Siddur, Hannah?
Yes, Ingatherin of the Exiles.
Ingatherin of the Exiles, which in Hebrew is
Kibutz Galuyot.
Kibutz Galuyot. Kibutz Galuyot. Leslie's got a tiny little Siddur there. You've got the Saks one there, yeah? What have you got there, Charlie? You got the green one. What's the difference between the green one and the red one? That's what Reform. All right, okay. Well, that's the singers. The green one is the singers.
Yeah.
Centenary one or something, was it?
Yeah.
And you've got Koren over there, have you? Okay. Okay, and I have the Rinat Yisrael, but I have the Nusach Sfarad one in front of me. Yochanan, what have you got? He's got something in he's got double Dutch there. Is that Nusach Sfarad or Ashkenaz? Sfaradim. Okay. Eidot HaMizrach.
No,
Then
Sfarad. Nusach Sfarad.
Spanish-Portuguese.
Spanish or Portuguese. Okay. Very good. So we've got a whole mixture. Now let's just read the bracha first of all, and then we want to do our usual thing here. I want you to tell me the strange things about this bracha. What doesn't fit? I mean, the problem that we say this every week, but the problem is we say this 3 times a day, and we don't notice what we're doing. I want us to. The whole point of this shiur is to hone in on what we're saying and see what doesn't sort of gel and see and make it gel at the end. So let's just read it. Tekah b'shofar gadol lecherutenu. Tekah. What's the root of that word? Yeah, tekiah, blowing of the shofar. So tekah b'shofar gadol, blow on the great shofar. Lecherutenu. What's that mean? For our freedom.
liberty.
Or liberty, okay? Liberty or freedom. V'sa nes. Okay, what's a nes, Charlie? I knew you'd say that, which it is. But that's not what it means here. A nes is a miracle. But what does it mean here? Where do we have the word nes in the Torah, which doesn't mean miracle? Okay, you're right. It means it means a banner or a mast. But where do we have that in the Torah? That word nes, where it doesn't mean a miracle. We all think. I would also have said, if I just said to you what's the word nes, I would also have said miracle. It's not what it means here.
Yeah.
The tribes did have their flags, yes, but that's not what it is. Somebody raised a nest with something on it.
Snake?
Yes, the Nachash, the fiery snake. Yeah, when they were all getting bitten by stuff, and Moshe Rabbeinu held up this pole. Nes is a pole or a mast. Now, why is that the same word? Yeah, Nes is yeah, it's the Nes is the pole that you put the degel on. Okay, the degel is the flag. The Nes is the flagpole. Why is it the same word as miracle then, Charlie?
Pressure. Yeah.
Why is a miracle the same word as a flagpole?
In this case, or
No,
just in
generally. Anyone? Think laterally. What is a miracle? Okay, and when you have a miracle, what does that do? Shows people what?
the greatness of Hashem.
Okay, in effect, what you're doing is what? You're waving a flag, aren't you? If you make a miracle, if you do a miracle, you are in fact making a statement, aren't you? You're saying, hey, something really odd is going on here. Something really special is going on here. It's like raising a banner. Okay, and that's why it's the same word. Okay, it's the same root because of that. But here it means the sort of literal word of the word nes, which means a pole or flagpole. So sa, what does sa mean? Lift up. Okay, sa. Okay, what do we say? Esa enai el heharim. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Me'ayin yavo Esrei. How many times have we said that in the last 4.5, 5 months? Okay, Esa means to I will raise up. The aleph at the beginning means I will raise up. Sa, this is a request. Sa nes, lift up a banner. Lekabet, to gather. Same word as kibutz. What is a kibutz? It's a collective. It's a collective farm, isn't it? So lekabet, to so raise up a banner, lekabet, to gather galuyotenu. Let's break that word down. Nu at the end, our. Galuyot, plural of galut. So our dispersions, yeah, our exiles. Lift up a banner to gather up our exiles. I'm just translating the words now. I'm not just saying anything else other than translating the words. How many of us, including me, have said these words so many times and not thought about, well, what on earth is all that about? Lifting up a banner and all that stuff. What's all that about? V'kabet, v'kabtzenu, sorry, next word, v'kabtzenu, and gather us, yachad, together. And the Nusach Sfard has the word mehera in it, quickly. Me'arba kanfot haaretz, from the 4 corners of the earth. The Nusach Ashkenaz stops there and then finishes the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem mekabetz nidchei amo Yisrael. Blessed are you, Hashem, who gathers in nidchei. How is that translated by Rabbi Sachs, please? The dispersed of Israel, of his people Israel, yeah? Art scroll, dispersed. What have you got in there? What have you got in Dutch? Dispersed, okay. Okay, no, we're not going there yet. We'll get there. Hold that word, hold that thought. Yes, no, it is relevant. In the Nusach Sfard, and I says, yes, and we have that in the Nusach Sfard and also in the Spanish and Portuguese version. There is one extra word there. And that's one of the words that when David Coleman stands in front of the Omid when he davens for Nusach Sfard, he has to remember to say, because He doesn't normally say it when he's davening in Nusach Ashkenaz for the last X number of years. Correct, David? It's one of the words. Now, I have the other problem. When I go back to England, I always try and go back to England for my father's yacht site, so I can visit the Kever. Right, so I have the yacht site there, and I have to daven for the Omid. And so I am so used to now davening here, although I daven Nusach Ashkenaz privately, but when I'm davening for the Omid, it's here. Right, I'm so used to it when it comes out, Me'aba Kamfota Aretz, and you have to stop yourself from saying La'artseinu. It's like when you're saying Kaddish, you go there and you say Vayatzbach B'Kono V'Kono Mashiach, you get stoned, you know. Yeah, homon, yeah. So
when we're davening with the Kehillah, should one be davening Musaf or?
Well, that depends. That depends. That depends. There are arguments to say both ways. Let me just say for the recording and for the Zoomers what the question was. The question was, when a person is davening, who is used to davening Ashkenaz, who has been brought up with Ashkenaz, Nusach Ashkenaz, his father daven Nusach Ashkenaz, and he then goes to a community where they daven Nusach Sfard. Charlie's question was, should we swap to Nusach Sfard, or should we stick with Nusach Ashkenaz when we're davening privately? When I say privately, I mean not in front of the Amud. Okay? So let's get the easy bit out of the way. When you're up there in front of the Amud, you daven whatever the Nusach of the place is. Unless you happen to be a Chabadnik, in which case you ignore that rule and you daven Nusach Ari. Okay, so I better expunge that from the recording, hadn't I? Okay, so that's the easy bit. Now, the question that you asked, Charlie, is a difficult question to answer because there are different opinions. Yochanan says you stick with your own Nusach. Minhag avotenu biyadenu. You have a minhag of your father, and you stick to that minhag. Wait, let me finish. Wait. Okay, so one sec. Let's just get to the basics, and then we can talk about the problems. So the first point of this is you should stick with your own minhag. However, there's another opinion that says, okay, I'm now part of this community. I'm going to be part of this community going forward. I'm not just a visitor in this community. I'm part of this community. It would be reasonable to change to that Nusach because that's where I'm davening. And that's a valid position to take. But if possible, i.e. if your father is still alive, you should ask permission from your father to change Nusach. Okay? If you don't have father, your father's passed away, and you can't ask him, then it can be assumed that he would give you that permission. And both positions are valid. If you're asking me what I do, I daven Nusach Ashkenaz when I'm davening on my own, because that's what I was brought up with. That is what my father davened. Now, what's really interesting is that my son in Australia, who is the Rav of a Nusach Ashkenaz shul, who was brought up in my house with Nusach Ashkenaz, he davens Nusach Sfard with my permission, okay? Because of my family history, which is very interesting. My grandfather, my father's father, came from Romania, and he davened in the Romanian shul in Manchester, which davened Nusach Sfard. Okay, my grandfather came when he was 18 to the UK, davened in the Romanian shul. My father had his bar mitzvah in the Romanian shul. My father's father died 6 months before my father's bar mitzvah. Okay, so immediately after his bar mitzvah, before his bar mitzvah, he went to live with his older sister, Jeffrey Glassky's mother. Okay, for those that know Jeffrey. Okay, she was newly married. Jeffrey wasn't yet born. His older brother was born. And my father, aged 12, went to live with them. He carried on davening in the Romanian shul until his bar mitzvah. After his bar mitzvah, he then went to Daven with his brother-in-law, who was in effect in loco of his father. Jeffrey's mother was 11 years older than my father. Her husband was a couple of years older than that. So he was 13 years older than my father. He was in his 20s. My father was 12. And he took him to shul. Okay? But he took him to his shul, which was Nusach Ashkenaz. So my father davened Nusach Sfard until his bar mitzvah, and then changed to Nusach Ashkenaz. Okay? Along came me another 10 or 15 years later, and I was brought up in the same shul, Nusach Ashkenaz. I had all my Zaydas, Machzorim, and Sidurim from back in the Hain. They were all Nusach Sfard, and I had them all. My son came to me when he was in yeshiva and learnt this halacha, and he said, I want to go back to the family minhag, which is really Nusach Sfard, because the only reason that my father changed was because his father died and he had to move away. So he asked me, would I mind if he changed to Nusach Sfard? And I said, I'm delighted, because it means now that you can use, my Zayda's things, and I really like that. Then, of course, he became the Rav of a Nusach Ashkenaz shul. So you have this whole complete mixture of all sorts of things. So he davens Nusach Sfard, except when he's davening in front of the Omid, which is quite a lot of the time, when he does Nusach Ashkenaz. And I'm davening Nusach Ashkenaz here, and if I daven up there, I'm davening Nusach Sfard. So it's a complete mixture.
It's not a problem. For example, if you're davening Zukei Zimmer on a Shabbat morning, you're all over the place.
Yeah, Sukkot to Zimmer on Shabbat morning. You're not really all over the place. The only actual thing you're doing is moving Bruch Sha'amah to the beginning, from the beginning in Nusach Ashkenaz to the end. And there's a few extra bits and pieces that you say. It seems a lot more than it really is when you actually analyze it. But you're right. And if it means that by sticking with your Nusach Ashkenaz, you would be confused in your davening, you would be distracted in your davening, then it would be a good reason to say, okay, I'm here now. This is my Nusach. I'm going to change my Nusach to the Nusach of the shul. And that's a perfectly acceptable thing. If you're able to ask your father, you should do so. I'm sure he wouldn't withhold that permission. Yes, Yochanan, you wanted to ask him.
But that's because what you said to be the other way around. When, for instance, when you're used to this paradigm, to the Nusach, and you go to an Ashkenazi shul because there is no Sephardi shul where you are living. You can try out the Ashkenazi way, but it doesn't work. You mix up, especially with the Amidah, with other things. So that's one thing. Second thing I heard, that's this new what you said to me, not your own story, but what you said that you want to interview.
That's fair enough.
That thing, it's for me, that's new. I always understood the other way around.
Well,
and I would but there is another one, and that's something what I also heard, that if you look at, that's not only with it, especially with Birkat Amazon, for instance, which is Spanish Portuguese is much more longer, Ashkenazi one, and that when it is longer and it goes to a shorter version, that you better shouldn't do it. That's
okay, so let me just say that out loud. Yochanan says that if there's a longer version, you shouldn't go to the shorter version. I don't think that's true. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's true. Because what you might say, which could be valid, is that if you use an older version, a more ancient version, you shouldn't move to a newer version. Now, which is the more ancient version, the Ashkenaz version or the Nusach Sfard? I'm not talking about Spanish and Portuguese now, I don't know that. But the Nusach Sfard or Nusach Ashkenaz? Who thinks that Nusach Ashkenaz is older? Who thinks Nusach Sfard is older? Why'd you say that, David? Just because they're more authentic than we are. Yeah, well, you're wrong, actually. I also would have thought that, but it's not true. Because Nusach Sfard is based on Nusach Ari. Okay, now the Ari, Nusach Ari and Nusach Sfard came from the Hasidim, which is a very late thing. When I say very late, we're talking 16th century. Nusach Ashkenaz, if you look at the Sidurim of Nusach Ashkenaz, they go right back to the 12th century, or even possibly earlier. So the Nusach Ashkenaz is the older version. Nusach Sfard is based on the Nusach Ari, which is a later version. Now, there is a position to say that you shouldn't alter from something more ancient to something new. Now, the Nusach, people who daven Nusach Sfard say a different thing. What they say is that Nusach Sfard is a higher level because it's got elements of Kabbalah and Zohar and all this stuff that the Hasidim incorporated into the davening. And therefore, by going from Nusach Sfard to Nusach Ashkenaz, you are going down in Kedusha, and you don't go down in Kedusha. So the truth is, you pays your money and you pay, and you takes your choice because there's an argument to say either way. The bottom line is what you said right at the beginning. The basic rule is you stick with the minhag of your father unless there's a good reason not to do so. Coming to a new community and feeling that your davening is all over the place because you're not following them is a good enough reason to change if that's what you want to do. Many of the Anglos that have come here have changed. They have bought their Nusach Sfard Machzorim and they've bought their Nusach Sfard Sidurim, and that's absolutely fine.
I probably get one stuff up when I'm here. I daven Nusach Sfard. No, I don't. Should come indoors, but when I'm davening at home, I go back to.
So you ought to be consistent. Consistently inconsistent, yeah. So it's an interesting question that is raised there. It's off our topic, but it's an interesting question that you've raised. Yes, Leslie.
Because I find it very confusing, the davening for Hodu, for the Sukkot Zimra, well, it starts from there. I actually do the Ashkenaz of what I'm used to up to Hodu, and then I change over and follow the Sephard davening from Hodu onwards, which I find much easier. Is that wrong then? Because
Probably, yeah, because you're doing nishta hin, nishta her, as they say.
Something on my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the question. Doesn't God understand everything?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But in that case, there wouldn't be any rules, would they? I mean, you've got to have rules. That thing, God understands everything, is a cop-out answer for anybody who doesn't want to stick to the rules. It doesn't matter, God understands what I want to say, which is absolutely true. And somebody who davens with great kavanah and doesn't say the right words in the right order, it doesn't matter. But we're talking about the rules, okay? We're talking about the rules.
Okay? And you need a framework, okay? You need a framework for everything, okay? Including the davening, okay? But I once thought that, when there were 10 tribes, and they prayed, they didn't pray the same. They prayed, each tribe prayed differently.
But then along came the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah and unified everything.
But then along came other people and had various Musaf. And God understands everything. And the davening is for a person. And given that there's not a major difference between the different Musafs, then whatever a person feels that they're connected to or that brings them closer to why they're davening,
you're right,
should work.
You're right. To a degree, you're right. In which case, this whole I think this is Shiur number 50, we've been wasting our time. Because we've been talking about the rules and the individual prayers. We're today talking about these words, Tekah b'shofar gadol lechautenu. If you were to stand there and say, God, please bring back all our exiles from the four corners of the earth, will God understand? You said it with a great kavanah, but you didn't say those words. Will God say, naughty girl, Hannah, you haven't said the right words? Of course not. Right. Of course not. But as you've also said, you have to have a framework. You can't have a free-for-all, because when you have a free-for-all, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, because why am I having to come here at 8 o'clock, right, to daven here with a minyan? Why can't I say, you know what, I'm busy at 8 o'clock. I'm going to do it at 7:45, or I'm going to do it at 8:15. I don't need all these people here, because they're rules, and the rules are there for a purpose of concentrating the mind, bearing in mind that what will happen, or what would have happened, had there not been fixed prayers. we wouldn't do it. Let's be honest. We would not do it. We might do it occasionally when when we were in a bit of a foxhole because there's no atheists in a foxhole, or we might do it if we had a massive bracha came along and it took us by the spirit came and we wanted to thank the Kodesh Baruch Hu. But on a daily basis, we'd get up, we'd do our daily grind, and we wouldn't do it. Would we wake up every morning and say Moda Ani and think about it? No, we wouldn't. We would just get on with it. So the truth is that everything that you say is correct, but on a practical basis, the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah knew what they were doing, and they knew what human nature was like, and that's why we have the rules. Yes.
Did you hear me say that we shouldn't say Tefilah? All I'm saying is it doesn't always for everybody have to be an all or nothing thing. If I don't know your name, I'm sorry, Leslie feels comfortable saying Ashkenaz up to Hodu and from Hodu Sfard, and they're not all that much different. And they're still in the framework, and he's still coming to shul and davening with a minyan, then, why not?
Why not? Because it's not the rules, that's why. I mean, is he going to get struck down by a bolt of lightning? No, right? Is a Kodesh Baruch Hu going to say, oh, Leslie, you naughty boy? No, he's not. But, why do something which is out with the rules if there are rules there to stick to? You know me, I'm not a stickler for the rules. I'm really on your side, Hannah. But you can't have a scenario where you just, like, for instance, somebody asked me today, a Shiloh, right? It's God's sake, he's finishing Kaddish this week. So the question is, does he finish the Kaddish 11 months from the day of the death or the day of the burial? What difference does it make? I mean, does it really matter? His mother was buried 2 days after she died, for whatever reason. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter, but it mattered to him. Why? It mattered to him enough to ask me the question. Why did it matter? Because he wanted to do it right. He wanted to do it right, because by doing it right, there is an extra sort of element of saying, and I remember when I was saying Kaddish, I'm sure you've all felt the same thing. There was almost a perverse pleasure in how hard it was, right? The harder it was to find a minyan for that particular Kaddish, the more satisfaction I got from doing it. I remember being in the maddest places because I used to go for work all over the country. And I remember working my timetable around things so that I could run off to St. Albans to catch a minyan and, mad things like that. And the harder it was, and I did it, the greater the satisfaction. Why? Because I'd done it, because I did it because there was a reason I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it, as it were, to show my father how much it meant to me to say Kaddish for him. Okay. Now, if I'd have missed a Kaddish, would that have been the end of the world? No. No, but it's a part of the structure. The structure is there for a reason. That's all I'm saying. Let's move on, otherwise we'll never get right.
I never asked her about the Mishkan, how to build the Mishkan. And Moshe received exactly the major house, every corner, everything. And now build the Mishkan as you want. Now he
good point.
Exactly.
Good point. Good point. So Susie says that the Mishkan, when we learned the Mishkan, we had parasha after parasha after parasha on rules on how you did it. And it had to be done exactly as it should be done. Yes, David.
But here you've got two minhagim. It's not like
no.
There was one just the Mishkan had to be done this way. If there was two different ways he was told to do it.
Again,
so it's slightly
different. You could do what you like, right? And there is a logic to doing what you like. You want to do Nusach Ashkenaz, you want to do Nusach Sfard. Leslie asked me a question. Is it wrong to mix your metaphors, as it were? Technically, yes. Will you be struck down by lightning? No, I very much doubt it.
From tomorrow, I will go.
Okay, so let's move on.
Unfortunately, we're not all Moshe Rabbeinu. And unfortunately, in this day and age, it's little things like that, and they're really in the big scheme of things that may not matter, that divide us. Yeah. So
That's another point. Let me just.
Somebody from Chabad said to me, last week, that women, when they say Birkat HaShachar, don't say Baruch Shasani Keretzono. Everybody got in an uproar, because Chabad women don't say Baruch Shasani Keretzono. Oh God, yeah, really. If that's Chabad, then it's Chabad, and excuse my language, I'm Australian. What the hell's the difference?
Okay, well, yeah, I think there is a difference, and it's all to do with where it comes from and minhagim, and this is the real answer to the question. The question is that minhag and masorah is important, and it's important to the Chabadniks that they keep their masorah, and it's important that we keep our masorah, and that is the basis of the first answer that I gave you, which is you should stick with the minhag of your father. Now, that
you know that story, but I know you want to go on with one thing. Among the Eastern Sephardi, which means Edom and Mizrach, they found a solution here, and in the Iraqi, in the Moroccan, and they all made it up together. Yerushalmi, they call it. And the reason what came out of it, that a lot of beautiful substance in prayer and with other things they got lost.
Yeah, well, that is the danger. It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword, because there is an argument to say that we are now all in Eretz Yisrael, and we should all coalesce around Minhag Eretz Yisrael, which is basically the Rinat Yisrael Siddur. And I think there's an argument for that, to say that we are now Kibutz Galuyot, which is what we're talking about in this bracha, if we ever get round to it, and we should coalesce around the Minhag of Eretz Yisrael. The downside to that is exactly what Yochanan said, and that is that there are wonderful Minhagim that we would lose. Okay, and I'm sure that you can all think of minhagim in your communities, which you no longer do, which is a shame we don't do them, right? There's lots of other rubbish things that we did do that we're glad we don't do them, but there will be things that, there's a famous story. I don't know if it's true or not, but if it isn't true, it ought to be true. I think it is true, about a particular Hasidic sect who, when they do their hakafot around the bima, you've probably heard me say this before. When they go the hakafot around the bima with the arba minim on Sukkot, they get to a certain point and they bow down, and only with this one sect bow down at this particular point. And everybody thinks that there's some kind of kabbalistic thing. The reason is that back in the Haim, this particular shtetl, they had a low beam. Okay, and if you didn't bow down at that point, you cracked your head on the beam. So the Rebbe, who was leading the hakafot, got to this beam, bent down so he didn't bang his head, and everybody bows down. And that particular Hasidic sect to this very day bow down on the hakafot. Now, okay, it's what we call minhag shtus, okay, which means a stupid minhag. But there's a certain beauty about it, as long as you understand why and everything. There's a certain beauty. Okay, but it's an example. And I think that there is a tension here. There's a big tension here in Eretz Yisrael amongst people like us, the people who have come in. We're not even first generation Israeli. Are you a first generation Israeli, Susie? Were you born in Israel? No. Okay, so none of us are first generation Israelis, but we've probably got children or grandchildren who are first generation Israelis. One of the problems is this tension between the beauty of Kibutz Galuyot and the danger that we're going to lose the minhagim of yesteryear. And in some ways it's an inevitable tension, and you can't have it both ways to a degree. But it's not all or nothing. So anyway, let's move on. I think it's an interesting discussion, but we've now only got 25 minutes to do this bracha, and we haven't even finished saying the words yet. So in the Nusach Sfard version, we have the word le'artzenu. Now, as I said to you earlier, the Nusach Sfard version is a later version. That was added in later. Okay, so for the purposes of this shiur, for the moment, I might come back to it at the end, or they probably won't have time now. I want to put that word le'artzenu to the side. Okay, we're going to use the Nusach Ashkenaz version, which says Tekah b'shofar gadelu cheretenu sanes tekabes glutem katzenu yachad me'aba kamot haaretz Baruch atah Hashem mekabetz nidchei amo Yisrael. Right, we've said the words, we've translated them. Now I want you to tell me what's weird about this bracha. What strikes you as odd? Shofar. Let's start with the beginning. That's a good place to start. What's the shofar got to do with anything? And I'll go further, Charlie. What's cherutenu got to do with anything? What's freedom got to do with anything? This is a bracha about what? It's about the ingathering of the exiles. It's not about freedom. It's not about freedom at all. Why is it about liberty?
Finally, be truly free, if we're all together in our own place.
I don't think that's true. I think we can be free without being. I think it's not true on two counts. I think it's not true to say that we can't be free unless we're all in one place. And the second thing is definitely true. You can be all in one place and very much not free. How about a concentration camp for a start? Right? What did the Germans do? They gathered us all together from Arba Kamfot Haaretz of their empire, of the German hinterland. Yeah? And they put us all together, put us in a ghetto or a concentration camp, and we very much weren't free. What has freedom got to do with this? That's the first question. Okay, well, let's do the questions and then we'll come back to the answers.
It's got to do with, it's a dirty word in this day and age, but I don't mean it that way. If you had a country, a place that lived according to the Torah, then you would have liberty. And that you can only do if God brings us all back here the way he should.
Were you in the Shiur of the Gemara Shiur last week? If not, go and listen to it, because we discussed what life would be like in a Torah society. And there is and what we were discussing in the Gemara Shiur, if you're interested, you can go and listen to it. It was last week's Gemara Shiur, was religious coercion. In a Torah state, there is coercion, not just for the negative commandments. So in other words, if you transgress a negative commandment, there is also coercion in the positive commandments. So for example, if you refuse to shake the lulav on Sukkot in a true Torah state, the Bet Din will send round the muscle and force you, beat you up until you do it. Okay. So anyway, I'm not going down that road. So let's carry on. So now let's carry on. So right, we've got the question about the shofar and freedom. What's that got to do with it? Next question. V'sa nes.
It's a real sort of statement, isn't it?
Lift up a banner. What's all that about?
Yeah, to come actually, you wouldn't have thought you'd do more than just lift up a banner.
I understand kabseinu mi'aba kamfot haaretz, because that is the point of the bracha. How do I know that's the point of the bracha? Because the chatima, the end of it. Baruch atah Hashem mekabetz nidchei amo Yisrael. Remember, we've gone through this before. The end of the bracha is the essence of the bracha. So the essence of this bracha is gathering in the people. Okay? Now, it's nothing to do with freedom, and it's nothing to do with the shofar. But it must be, because remember we've said every single bracha has got a source somewhere in Tanakh. Remember the one that was really obvious was Rafa'enu. Remember I showed you Yirmiyahu, and that was the exact words, except in the singular instead of the plural. Remember that? There was a pasuk in Yirmiyahu that says Rafa'eni Hashem ve'erape, right? Hoshi'eni ve'ivashea. Okay, exactly the same as this bracha. Every bracha has its source somewhere in the Torah or the Tanakh. Where's the source for this bracha? So that will answer us some of the questions.
Has this got to do with something when we will be blowing off the shofar and all the
Okay, yes, I know what you're referring to. There's a pasuk in the Torah in Parashat Vayikra. Let me show the zoomers. Let me share the screen with the zoomers. It's in Parashat. It's in Parashat Bahar, actually. What I'm referring to. Where are the zoomers? Let's share the screen with them. Okay, how about this in Parashat Bahar? Okay, it says like this. V'asitem et chukotai ve'et mishpatai tishmeru v'asitem otam. You shall do my chukotai, my statutes, ve'et mishpatai, and my judgments. Tishmeru, you shall keep. V'asitem otam, and you shall do them. V'shavtem al haaretz lavetach, and you will live in the land securely. V'natna haaretz piria, ve'achaltam lasova, v'shavtem lavetach aleha, and you will eat to satiety, and you will live upon it securely. And then it says, well, what will we eat in the 7th year? What is he talking about? It's talking about Shemitah. Okay, talking about Shemitah. So then what happens after Shemitah? You have another Shemitah. And what happens after 7 Shemitot? Yovel, not Yovel, Yovel, Jubilee. And what do we do on the Jubilee? Okay, here we go. V'safarta lecha sheva Shabbatot, sheva piamim. You shall count for yourself 7 Shemitot, 7 times. Okay, next pasuk. V'avarta shofar truah. You shall proclaim with shofar blasts. Okay, ta'aviru shofar b'chol artzechem. You shall sound the shofar throughout your land. Next pasuk. Ukratem deror ba'aretz l'chol yoshveha. Any Americans here? No Americans. Okay. What does that mean? Ukratem deror ba'aretz l'chol yoshveha.
Freedom for all the people.
Yeah, you shall call out freedom, dror, not door, dror. Freedom, ba'aretz, in the land, l'chol yoshveha. You shall proclaim freedom in the land for all its inhabitants. Where? Why did I ask if there's any Americans? Where is that? It is not in the Declaration of Independence. It is on the Philadelphia. It is the Liberty Bell. Why is it called the Liberty Bell, Leslie? Because it says, Ukratem Dara, you shall call out freedom or liberty. That's why it's called the Liberty Bell. Okay? The Liberty Bell has this pasuk on it. Huh? It is about liberty. Well, this pasuk is about liberty. Now, so we have a connection now between the pasuk, which is on the Liberty Bell, Ukratem Dara ba'aretz l'chol yoshveha, which comes from Parashat Bahar. The shofar is what declares freedom. Now, what happens when you have Yovel? Apart from the slaves going free, what happens? Yes, all the land goes back to its original owners. Now, what happens if your original owner is not there?
The descendants.
Okay, but what's wrong with the descendants? They now live in, Stanmore.
By the laws of inheritance.
They're going to come back and get their land, aren't they? Right? If you were sat in Stanmore, Leslie, and somebody said to you, oh, it's Jubilee here. By the way, Leslie, you're a Levi. Oh, yeah, it doesn't count. You're a Levi. You don't get any. Well, that was a bad example. That was a bad example because Leslie's a Levi. So he actually does not have an inheritance in the land. He has the okay. He's got the Ore Miklat. Okay, forget you. You're not in right. You're in Boreham Wood, Charlie. Right? You're not a Levi, right?
Can be.
Right.
You're not if I'm going to live
Right.
on
No.
that.
So you're in Boreham Wood, and somebody says, you know what, Charlie? Your ancestor had some land, and it's Jubilee year. There's a nice parcel of land in Savion, in Tel Aviv, there, right on the front. It's worth an absolute fortune. What are you going to do? You're going to op it and you're going to go and get it, aren't you? So there's your connection between the Tekaba Shofar and the Kibutz Galuyot. It's a sort of a Yovel. And so therefore that's where the freedom comes in. What we're trying to do here is to pray for the ingathering of the exiles. Now, I said I was going to leave out Le'art Seinu. I'm just going to mention it and then leave it out again. Where are we going to get gathered into? Not in a concentration camp, God forbid, and not in Boreham Wood or Stanmore, but here in Israel. And so it's implied, the bracha is implied to be Israel, but it's not a bracha about the Holy Land. How do I know that? Because there is a bracha later on about Yerushalayim, okay? And that is about place. This is not about geography. This is about spirit. This bracha is bringing us together in spirit, not in geography, okay? Because there's a bracha about geography, about that later on. Here, it's about bringing us all together. We can be all together in one land and be completely divided. Mm-hmm. What were we like before the 7th of October? We were in one land. The people in this land were totally divided. Okay? So it's not about necessarily, of course, it is about the land, and that's why Artsena was put in later on, but it's not specifically, it's not majorly about that. It's about the spirit of being together, which is why V'sa nes lekabetz galuyotenu. That's why that fits in. If you are on a tiul, okay, in Yerushalayim, and it is a very busy time, let's say it is Chol HaMoed, right? Chol HaMoed Pesach or Sukkot, and you've decided you're going to take a shul trip, if you're foolish enough to do that, to Yerushalayim for Birkat Kohanim. And you turn up there and there are thousands of people. How on earth are you going to keep your little group together? You're going to, and you see it there. You see all these little Chinese folk and Japanese folk with their little flags, yeah? Right? And they're all following the man with the flag, right? Because you're part of that group. So this is what this is about. And when you are part of that group, you're all together, okay? You're together physically, but you're also together emotionally and spiritually. So the Sanes lift up a banner. Whose banner are we lifting up here? The banner of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay? So we are lifting up this banner when we're saying, lift up your banner. We're saying to you, God, you're the tour guide. Lift up your banner and we will all follow you. We will all follow you. And as a result of that, you will be Mekabet Nidchei Amo Yisrael. Now, I want to come back to that word Nidchei, because Hannah was about to tell us, and I stopped her earlier on, that Nidchei does not mean dispersed. What is the Hebrew word for dispersed, please? Okay, very good. Susie says, Mefuzar. Where have you heard that recently? Where have you heard that word Mefuzar recently? Yes, in Megillat Esther. Here it goes. Here we go. Vayoma Haman lemelech Achashverosh. Why didn't you all bang then when I said that? Thank you. Haman. Vayoma Haman lemelech Achashverosh. Haman said to Melech Achash, the king Achashverosh, Yeshnu am echad. There is one people. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Why didn't he just say Yeshnu am? There is a people. Because, David, we are one. When we are a people, a real people, we are ki am echad, belev echad. We are like one people with one heart. So Haman was alluding, don't think he meant that, but he was alluding to the fact that we are unified. But then he says something, Mefuzar umefurad bein ha'amim, who are mefuzar, Susie said it right, who are dispersed, umefurad, and separated. If you go to the supermarket, right, like I do on a regular basis, and I have to buy stuff for the shul and I have to buy stuff for me, and I've got two lots, I have to say to the cashier, Ze benifrad, this is separate, okay? So I don't have to end up getting all mixed up. So I put them separately. Benifrad means separately. Mefuzar means dispersed. Mefurad means separate. They're dispersed and they're separate all over the place. So how can we be am echad and be mefuzar and mefurad? That is the paradox of the Jewish people. That we can be at times am echad and we can be at times mefuzar. So if you wanted to be accurately translating, so for example, if we were translating the other way around, if you took the English translation that is in all our books that says a dispersed, and you were to give it to a Hebrew speaker, they would not say nidche. They would say mefuzar, those who are spread out. Yeah, mefuzarim, they would say. So why are we using the word nidche? What does nidche mean? What is the root? What is the root of that word? Yes, pushed out. Doche, pushed. Okay, to push. If you want to postpone something, right? If you have an appointment at the doctor's and you need to postpone it, you doche et ato. You postpone, you push it off. When Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbat, we commemorate Tisha B'Av and we fast not on Shabbat, on Sunday. And what's that called? Nidche. Same word. Pushed off. So it doesn't mean dispersed. It means those who are pushed out. If you are nidche, you are pushed out. Okay? You're pushed out. Where do we have that word nidche in Tanakh? You won't know this from Tanakh. If Frank was here, yes, I was going to say, if Frank was here, he would be able to sing it for us. Go on. Yeah, no, you're very close. Very good, Hannah. You're very close. And where do you know that from? Yes, may I sure. I'm going to tell you the pasuk in a minute. Where do you know it from? You don't know it from Yeshayahu. Yeah, and where did the song come from? Where do we sing that song? Rosh Hashanah, Musaf. Okay. If Frank was here, he would sing it for us. I'm not going to sing it to you, but you'll recognize it when I say to you, listen to this. How about this for a quote, which may be the pasuk, which is at least partly the source of our bracha. V'haya bayom hahu, and it will be on that day. Yitaka b'shofar gadol. There will be a blowing of the great shofar. Does that sound familiar to you? Uva'u ha'ovdim, and those lost people, ovdim with a vet, with an aleph, not with an ayin. With an ayin, it would be servants. Ovdim with an aleph means those who are lost. Uba'u ha'ovdim, the lost ones will come. Be'eretz Ashur, in the land of Assyria, Ashur. V'hanidachim, Be'eretz Mitzrayim, and those who are pushed out to Eretz Mitzrayim. V'hishtachavu l'Hashem, Behar HaKodesh. V'hishtachavu l'Hashem, Behar HaKodesh, B'Yerushalayim. Okay? Sorry, Frank's not here, so you have to put up with me. V'hishtachavu l'Hashem, and they will bow down to God, Behar HaKodesh, in the holy mountain, B'Yerushalayim. Okay? So our pasuk, our bracha, is about Yerushalayim, but it's not about the geography of Yerushalayim. It's about what goes on in Yerushalayim. It's about that Hishtachavu l'Hashem. And that's why we've got Tekah b'shofar gadol. It's referring us to this pasuk. And that's why the bracha is Mekabetz Nidchei Amo Yisrael, not Mefuzarei Yisrael. Nidchei, those who are pushed aside. It's referring us to this pasuk in Yeshayahu, which we say in the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah.
Those that stayed behind.
Those who went back to Mitzrayim. A whole bunch of people after before the complete destruction of the first temple, there was a partial exile. A whole bunch of people went to Eretz Mitzrayim. Okay, and they stayed there. So that's who they're referring to there. So these are the nidachim, the ovdim ba'eretz Ashur, those who are lost in those who are lost in the land of Assyria. Where is Assyria, by the way?
Near Syria.
It's very confusing because I used to think that Assyria was like, you know, a garden, you know. Assyria. I remember we used to go first Seder night. We always used to go to my sister's house, and we'd finish at some unearthly hour, and the kids were very little, and we wanted to keep them awake when they were walking home and in the buggy. Didn't want them to fall asleep because then they would have to wake them up to put them to bed. So we used to play I Spy, and one of my kids said, "I spy my life," something beginning with "a," right? And none of us could get it, and it was a garage. Right? So I thought Assyria was Assyria, but of course it's not. Assyria was that whole Levant there, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq. All of that was the Assyrian Empire. Okay, so who are the Ovdim? Why does it use the word Ovdim, the lost ones? Yes, they're the 10 tribes. The Ovdim Ba'eretz Ashur, those who were lost in the land of Assyria up there, that's where they went. The 10 tribes who were the northern kingdom of Israel after the split, they were the first to be exiled, right? And they didn't go to Bavel, they went north to Syria, to Lebanon, to Syria, to Iraq, and all of there, and then they got dispersed, and they became the lost 10 tribes. That's the Ovdim Be'eretz Ashur. Nidachim Be'eretz Mitzrayim are the ones that I just told you about that went down to Mitzrayim. Okay, so what that pasuk in Yeshayahu is talking about, it's talking about when we will all come back together again, not just the Jews. What are Jews? From the tribe of Yehuda and a bit of Binyamin and a bit of Levi. Okay, so that's the Jews, but Yeshayahu is referring to the Israelites, and that's a bigger section. That's all those 10 tribes. They're the Ovdim Be'eretz Ashur. So when we're praying here, there's a hint in our bracha to the lost 10 tribes as well. And that's because the pasuk that is forming that loose source for this bracha is one of the pasukim is that pasuk in Yeshayahu. And so you have here this end of the bracha because we're out of time now. So let's just say, what is this Tekah Shofar Gadol? First of all, there's the connection with Yovel, where it's a Jubilee, it's a reset button. Jubilee is the reset button, and we want to reset back to the original. It also refers to the Shofar Gadol that Yeshayahu is talking about when the lost tribes will come back. Cherutenu, definitely freedom, because we want. I never really understood why this Cherutenu was there until I thought about it today, because it's what I said earlier on. You can be gathered together and be very much not free. And so when we're asking to be gathered together, we don't want to be gathered together in a ghetto, thank you very much, where we can't get out and we're being the opposite of free. If we're going to be gathered together, we want it to be lecherutenu, for our freedom. And I would like to suggest to you that was put in there with a bit of Ruach HaKodesh. You know me, I'm not a Ruach HaKodesh sort of person, but I actually like that idea that cherutenu is in there for our generation. Okay, that word's put in there for our generation. And then you've got the Sa'anes lekabetz Galuyotenu. Hold up the banner. We're asking this, the Kodesh Baruch Hu's banner. And the end of the pasuk is all about coming to the Har HaKodesh and bowing down to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. This is a blessing or a request, not for a physical return to the land, but a spiritual return to our Kodesh Baruch Hu. And that is why I wanted to leave out the word La'artzenu, because the word La'artzenu implies that it is a geographical thing to our land. And of course it is to a degree, because we can only be fully holy, etc., in our land. So I accept that. But the original did not have Le'artzenu in, and by putting Le'artzenu in, it sort of dilutes the message of let's put it this way. It would be easy to interpret it in a different way of geography, and I don't think that's what it was meant for. The bracha of Yerushalayim, which we'll come to shortly, is more about geography, and this is more about spirituality. Right, I'm done. Yes, Hannah. No?
I'm a bit frustrated here.
Hannah's frustrated. I'm sorry about that.
Because if you take it as a spiritual thing, yeah, then I was always taught that only if you follow the Torah, like it says, charut v'lo cherut, cherut v'lo
No charut, yes.
v'lo
You
cherut,
just answered your own question.
then you're free.
Yeah.
So I agree that it's a spiritual thing, but I agree. But I also believe that it's a call for us to come back to the source. You know, like
That's it.
if we come back to
Why
the
is
source,
that? Why is that a contradiction to what we've just said? I think that fits in very well. We're going back to the source. The source is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you've answered your own question. Cherutenu, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says there is no one who is free except somebody who learns Torah, because it says don't read the word charut, ela cherut, and rather don't read the word engraved, i.e. the Ten Commandments and the Torah, i.e. cherut, freedom. So you've answered your own question. Right, we're out of time, and I'm going to ask anybody on the Zoom. There's not hardly anybody left on Zoom. They've all gone away, so there's nobody there. Any other questions in the room? No, right, gone. See you all next week. We did got a little bit sidetracked with Nusach today, but doesn't matter. It's all good stuff. Laila Tov, everyone. Laila.